Hello, everyone. This is Jessica Pettit, and who do I have the pleasure of interviewing today?
Hi, everyone. I am Kelly Charles Collins. I am a TEDx speaker, coach, author, and an attorney. And I am a devout diversity and inclusion person. I am very excited about this topic and very passionate about the topic, and hope that, it becomes more of just a thing to do and just be part of our everyday life.
I always say I am working every day towards my unemployment. So until that becomes a reality, I will still have job security.
Exactly. For all of us. I say that too, like as a lawyer. The other day I was having a discussion with one of the attorneys, and we were, going back and forth and saying how things were just, why does it have to be so hard? And I said, oh, that's why we're employed, right? Because nobody understands what we're doing, so we get to keep working.
Right.
Exactly. But in this space, I hope that all of us get to not work at this issue too much longer.
Oh, that'd be great. Well, when I started doing these interviews, I had two concepts that are rolling around. And so
Okay.
I'm going to introduce one of them to you, and it is a diversity dividend. So I keep hearing this term. It usually kind of goes to like the bottom line or the profits of why diversity is important. But can you talk about diversity dividend and what it means to you? And if it helps, think about investment, action, and return.
Okay. So I think it does go to the bottom line, but we have to think about the bottom line in different ways, right? So the bottom line, you can talk about just purely a monetary thing, right? What happens with the company? Do they make money? Are they profitable? What does it look like for them? But then you can also talk about the bottom line as far as people go, right? And when I talk about diversity and inclusion, I like to talk about it in terms of the people and what people get out of it. Because if your employees are happy, your employees understand that they are part of the fabric of your organization, then that's what really pushes the monetary bottom line. But you want people to feel that they're included. You want your people to feel that they're empowered. You want people to understand that there is this whole circle of trust within the organization. And so for me, that's bottom line issues right there. How do your people feel when they show up to your organization? How do they feel being a part of your organization? Because if any of that is out the door, if they don't feel that way, no matter how many diverse people you have in your organization, your bottom line's not going to do well. So the numbers part is a result of treating people well and including people in your organization and your strategic planning.
Absolutely. So the other one is asterisk other duties assigned. This is usually like the last line of a job description or something. So the supervisor has some flexibility of what they get to make you do. But in a diversity lens, I also think this is where, like, if you're the only one, you can get tokenized, or you're automatically the chair of some informal affinity group, and then that emotional labor, time, and resources don't actually get monitored or part of your evaluation process. Right. What does asterisk other duties assigned mean to you?
It's funny that you say that, because as an employment lawyer, I'm always saying that, like telling people, yes, your job duties are this and every other thing that they ask you to do, so long as it's not illegal or immoral. When it comes to being the token or being the only one, been there, done that, right? Been the only one in the room. To this day, as a Black female attorney, being the only one in the courtroom in that room. Mm-hmm. So other duties as assigned, I think sometimes we have to take on that role. And though we're placed there as a token, we have to try to turn that, right? To use that tokenization to our benefit. So when I'm in court, or I am the only one in the room, and I realize that, they turn to you to, okay, if there's a Black issue, well, Kelly, what do you think, right? It's one of those things that you have to kind of pivot. Okay, well, yeah, this is but what do you think? How can you help the situation, right? And I think we can't be offended by it necessarily, because then that allows people to say, see, this is why we don't do, or see, this is why we don't have. Because then they can attach all these words to you that they would normally attach to you, right? Aggressive, not interested, angry, whatever. So I think the thing to do is to take that asterisk and make it a star for you, right? Okay, great. I'm the only black one in here. And you want me to do this? Okay, this is how we're going to do this. Like, become the head, become the leader. Do something to then push forward an agenda that is important to you, and make sure that they respect that that's what you're doing. If you're going to put me in this role, make them understand that I'm not just sitting here as a number for you. I'm not sitting here as a black face for you. We are going to do something, and we are going to use my agenda, my inclusion, my empowerment to move these things forward.
I totally agree. As also a survivor of being the only one, I felt there's a turning point. I had the option of, once I realized what was going on, staying in my little office, doing my job,
right,
or infiltrate and blow it up.
That's right. That's right. If you bring me there, it's so funny. I'll tell you an example. So when I was a young lawyer, maybe not in age, but in years, and age too, I I was invited to this meeting. So this huge meeting with all the bigwigs. It was me and another black male attorney. So we were the only black people in the room. And I was so excited because I'm like, oh, I got invited to this meeting. So I go in the meeting and everyone's talking. And me, with my mouth, I just said, oh, they're talking about stuff. I'm gonna intervene and talk about stuff. After that meeting, I got pulled aside and they were like, Kelly, you weren't supposed to say anything. We just needed you to be there. Like, you weren't supposed to say anything. I was like, that's not how this goes. If you put me in there, I'm going to say something. Like, I'm not there to just be a potted plant. So if I have a position, I'm going to share my position. But it was one of the first times that I was like, wow, I was really tokenized, right? I was put in there just so that they could say somebody was there, not knowing who they had put in there. That, I wasn't going to just sit there and not say anything. But it was really, I was in my 20s at the time. It was like, it was a real eye opener. I was like, oh yeah, that's never going to happen again. Like, if you put me in there, I'm going to speak.
You're in there, right?
Yeah.
In the room when it happens.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So in the early prep of this, when we filled out survey questions, and by we, I mean you filled out survey questions. One of the things that separates you from some of the other folks that I'm interviewing, and why I was so stoked, other than your spread, is you have all of the Venn diagrams that probably scare people and they're desperately needing around bias, harassment, and diversity. Can you talk about why you've chosen 3 topics people don't like talking about to talk about?
Okay. As an employment lawyer for the past 20 years, these are all issues that have resulted in my clients ending up in my office and me having to try their cases. And for me, it's just those are just really interesting topics. And what I found is that the reason that they're so scary and that people don't want to talk about it is the way it's presented to people, right? Mm-hmm. So my mom used to always tell me, Kelly, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And these topics, if I say diversity and inclusion, right, people are just like, oh my God, like, here we go again. If I say, what makes people different, like, what makes you different, like, just what makes you different from me, right? It is the presentation of it. If I talk to you about differences and enjoying differences or appreciating differences, then people are less likely to be like, oh, okay, because different has not been associated with racist or sexist or homophobic, right, or xenophobic. And so all of them intertwine. And I think at the bottom of all of it is trust. If people trust you, if people trust that you have their best interests at heart, if people trust that you're not trying to hurt them or negate them in any way, then they'll have these conversations with you. They will be open to understanding, well, why is this important? Why is diversity and inclusion important? Why, shouldn't I be discriminated against people? Biases, like, we all have them. So why is it that, some people act on them differently? And some of it, what I found over the 20 years, especially like harassment and all this stuff, a lot of it is ignorance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ignorance of the law, ignorance of their behavior, and a lot of it is just not intentional. We think it's intentional. Now, obviously we see what's going on in the world right now, so that makes it a little different, and people are seeing what we as Black people have been talking about for years, right? You're seeing it up close, personal, like, oh, okay, this is really happening. Yeah, it's been happening. But again, even people like that, you'll never get through to everyone, but part of it is the approach. Part of it is being able to speak to everyone. And I just love those topics. I love being able to share with people and enlighten people and have them to understand, like me, I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 20 years, 23 years actually. And people look at you and they're like, oh, your life is, wonderful. Well, no, I was just, accosted basically in the courthouse by one of my white male colleagues, like showing his behind in front of all of our other colleagues. And I had to tell him to get out of my face, right? So, the microaggressions, all those things we experience. And I think part of having that kind of Venn diagram of these issues is really to show people how all of these things intersect and how they affect people on in their daily lives. If you are my friend, or if you like me, or you're my colleague, and I can explain to you, like, listen, these things are real, these things happen, these things have happened to me, you may be able to take that information more than just, oh, it happened to the person down the street. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, they're just really interesting topics, and I love to talk about them, and I think that I have a way of giving this information and sharing this information with people that they don't feel threatened or offended by it.
Yeah, I would agree. You have a great approach. And I think it's important to clarify, too, that the microaggressions, the tokenization, the harassment, the conscious or unconscious bias, it doesn't have to be a problem for someone else in order to be a problem based on, you mentioned race, gender, immigration status, age, sexuality, religion, politics, all of those things are regularly happening. It's just whether or not you have the opportunity to get to see it, witness it, or experience it.
Right.
Which, another thing that you said that I thought was really cool was that the experience you have as an employment lawyer helps you also kind of educate people the difference between being proactive and reactive. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So as a trial lawyer, obviously that I'm working on the reactive part, right? So you've gotten sued, you've gotten a demand letter, and I get it, right? So now I have to pick up the pieces and help to minimize the risk as best I can based on things that have happened. But over the years, what I have really worked on is to be proactive with my clients, to say, okay, listen, here's what we need to have in place. Here are the foundations that you need to have in place. You'll never, ever have a zero harassment, zero bias, zero discrimination environment. It won't happen. That's just not realistic. However, you can create environments where those things do not fester, right? Where those things are not acceptable. And so because I am a lawyer and I've tried these cases and I know what happens at the end, I can reverse engineer and say, listen, if you fail to, take this complaint seriously, somebody says, they didn't get promoted because of, whatever protected category, here's what's going to happen to you. So since I know what's going to happen to you, and this is not something that I'm just guessing about, I can tell you this is actually what happens. We can go back and say, well, look at what happened, right, to get us here. Let's figure out what we needed to do at the beginning so these things didn't happen. And so it's really an interesting, I think that's what, in this space, I think that's what makes me a little bit different, that I understand the concepts, right, of harassment, bias, all of that, and I can explain them to you, and I can talk to you about the stats, and I can do that. But I can also give you this additional information based on my legal expertise and try to help you to understand that this is what happens. This is, it's great that we talk about bottom line issues and all that stuff. Here's the negative part of that. Here's what will really, really affect personnel bottom line issues, monetary bottom line issues. And so if you don't want to be over here, let's figure out what we have to do over here in order to make sure that that doesn't happen. And it will happen, like I said. There's going to be somebody who's not happy. There's always somebody who's not happy. But what I tell them is, as long as we have your ducks in a row, by the time we get there, we can do away with that. We can really be able to fight it. But if you just wait, put your head in the sand and hope that nothing's going to happen, that's where the problems lie.
And this is evidently a classic movie that I'm relatively new to, but you are reminding me of Clarence from It's a Wonderful Life.
I know.
Right. So it's a Christmas movie that friends of mine made me watch this season, and it's when you wish you were dead, what would happen?
Okay.
Right? Or you wish you were never born, or Saturday Night Live did something with Trump, I wish I was never president.
Okay.
You go back and you see
Right.
how everything works out. And in one case it's positive, all the other cases it's really negative.
Right.
The lesson is, no, I should be here. That's what that made me think of. Okay, so here are my two favorite questions.
All right.
Number one, what have you changed your mind about lately?
Oh, wow. What have I changed my mind about? What's important to me in life, what my true purpose is. I know I've always known that my purpose was to be a light for others and to inspire others. I just didn't know how that was going to happen, and so I've changed my mind about how I'm going to create that in my life.
That's great. What do you absolutely know?
What I absolutely know is that trust is the foundation of everything. And without it, we won't be able to function. We won't be able to fix the divisiveness. We won't be able to come together to reach common goals. I just think that, it's a word that people throw around a lot. Oh, I trust you, or I don't trust you. But at the root of a lot of things, that is really what separates people, right? It was back to the conversation when I was saying, if people trust you, they will be open to listening to you and, have these hard conversations, these hard discussions with you. They will follow you. They will be inspired by you. They will share with you. They will lead you. So I just think that, well, not that I think, I know. I know that trust is the foundation of everything.
Awesome. So last three, lightning round.
All right.
I have icebreaker cards.
Okay.
And there are 50 questions divided up into easy, intermediate, and deep. And you picked three numbers between 1 through 50. So
Okay.
your first lightning round question is number 22, intermediate.
Okay.
What is something that has happened in your life that has defined who you are?
Oh, when I found out 17 years ago that my mom had breast cancer, that devastated me because my mom, they call me her deodorant because I'm always underneath her. And I watched her go through chemo, radiation, and surgery with grace and hope. And it just made me know, I mean, she's always taught me this, that I can do and be anything that I wanted to be. But it just solidified for me that I had to, one of the things she said was, listen, I don't have time to die. I got things to do. And so for me, that just solidified that, I have things to do.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Excellent. All right, number 25, also intermediate.
Okay.
Share a time when you felt you made a very important decision.
Oh, well, I guess when I got accepted to law school, at the time I was a single mom. My son was a year and a half, and I had to decide whether I was going to go to law school or stay home because I had this child, and I had to make the decision for us to better our lives, that I would leave him in Miami with my mom and my sister so they could raise him while I went to California and went to law school.
Wow, that's a big, big decision.
Yeah. Yeah, they were in Miami, I was in California, but I knew that in order to make sure that we had a good life,
Mm-hmm.
that those 2.5 years were, a sacrifice that I needed to make, but I also knew that he was in very good hands, and so that made it easier.
And before video calling.
Right. We didn't have any of that. None of it. Yeah, so, in the 6-hour or 3-hour time difference. So it was hard, but we got through it.
Not the same at all, but when we got married, we lived in different states, only one time zone and only half the year because Arizona's weird. We lived in different states for the first year, and it was before video conferencing when it started, and then Skype kind of just got on the scene towards the end.
Right.
It's amazing how much just eyeball to eyeball really helped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
right,
it was hard, but we got through it.
Excellent. And now look at you.
Look at me.
Okay. And then number 2 is easy. So we're
Okay.
just ending strong. If you were given $1 million, how would you spend it? And what if you had to give it away?
Ooh, okay. First, if I had to spend it, I would pay off my student loans.
Speaking of law school.
I would pay off my student loans, and then I would save some of it and travel, make sure my mom, everybody was okay, all my whole family was okay. If I had to give it away, I would give part of it to anyone who's doing research for breast cancer, and the other part I would give to children, something that has to do with children, helping them to grow and become productive human beings.
Excellent. Well, Kelly, if anybody wanted to get in touch with you, or more importantly, hire you, how would you go about doing that?
Well, you can go to my website. It's Kelly Charles Collins, all one word, .com, or email me at kelly@kellycharlescollins.com, or call me 770-476-9865.
Excellent. And you said at the top that you're a TEDx speaker. So what's the name of it? So they can Google the title. I've already seen it.
My TEDx is The Bystander Effect, Why Some People Act and Others Don't. And it is wonderful if I do say so myself.
And you just go and check it out for the pink amazingness that it is. You'll know what I mean when you see it. Thank you very much, Kelly. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jazz.